Hello, everyone. How's it going out there? Thanks for joining me for Dangerous Ideas. I'm leecamp, the most censored comedian in America. Thanks for being here. Another nation. We're up to five. Five African nations have recently had coups that have brought down U.S. and French-backed Western governments. This is a big deal, and it shows a big shift in the world. So I'm going to get into that story. I'm going to get into the new documents, the new files revealed, revealing MK Ultra's reach, what exactly MK Ultra was involved in. Obviously, those of you who study history have known about MK Ultra for a while now, but these are new documents that reveal more truth about what exactly was going on inside MK Ultra. I'm going to get into that. I'm going to get into Biden's ridiculous efforts to court Black Americans because he's been doing such an amazing job, as we all know. So much going on. So please, let's get into it. Hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the follow button. If you're at Rumble, hit the friendy thing, the whatever, the little fairy icon. I don't know. I don't follow all the things. I don't know the platforms anymore. But all right, let's start off though with this another amazing coup. And I also, by the way, I'm not gonna do the 100% in positive, never give you any of the drawbacks type of thing. I'll give you a little bit of both sides here. But all right, so this is video taken of people celebrating in the streets. This coup that has just taken place in Gabon, and there are clearly a lot of people thrilled. This was a military coup. The military took over. I'll go ahead and read from the Consortium News article. Wild celebrations have broken out on the streets of Gabon's cities on Wednesday after a military junta announced on television that it had put President Ali Bongo Ondimba under house arrest and had seized power. The Bongo family had ruled the former French colony since 1967. Ali Bongo was the wealthiest man in Gabon with an estimated $1 billion in assets in a very poor country. It's always good. You know things are running right when one of the richest people rules a country. Whenever that's going on, you're like, it all works right, okay? It's just the whole system really on lock. George Washington was roughly the 10th richest person in the country at the time that he was leading the United States. Trump, obviously one of the wealthier people, even if he's lying about his $10 billion, and even if it's just $3 billion that Trump was worth when he was president, still one of the richest people in America. Whenever one of the 0.1% is supposedly the elected choice of the people, you know it's got to be legit, right? That could never be rigged or wrong or bought off in any way, correct? The coup took place just after the country's electoral commission declared that he won a third term. So it was his third term, but it was, 58 years in power or something like that of his family. Now, I don't know how legitimate the Gabon electoral system is. I know that if it's even slightly better than if it's just slightly better than the United States electoral system, then it's still a piece of shit that can be easily rigged. So it would have to be a lot better than the U.S. system to be legitimate. Sorry, I'll get rid of that. So this is from Consortium News, which is a great outlet if you follow their stuff. The pressure is growing on Paris. I skipped a paragraph. This is the fifth coup in a West African country once ruled directly by France since August 2020, when Mali fell to military leaders. That was 2020, so less than 3 years. Well, a little over 3 years. This was followed by military coups in Burkina Faso in September 2022, in Guinea in September 2021, and in Niger last month, and Gabon on Wednesday. The pressure is growing on Paris as the coups are directed against France's continuing neo-colonial rule in West Africa. The push to get France out is being buoyed by a growing confidence of developing countries in the emergence of a multilateral world amid the accelerating death of U.S. unilateralism and the remnants of colonialism. The African Union and France, which have 350 troops in the country, have condemned the coup. It isn't clear yet whether these troops will be asked to leave by the new rulers. And just to throw in here that I've mentioned it several times before, but the Berlin Conference of 1885 was when a bunch of white ruling elite of Europe and the United States got together in a little room, put a map of Africa on the wall, and drew lines all across it and said, this is yours, this is mine, this is ours, this is yours. Now, the United States, during that divvying up of Africa, didn't get any countries. We didn't get any for us, even though we clearly had stolen plenty from Africa, including human beings. So it's not that the U.S. wasn't exploiting and extracting Africa, but at that time, 1885, we were less powerful on the world geopolitical stage. And so we were in the room, but we didn't get any countries handed to us. Instead, they were mainly divvied up to Belgium and France and a handful of others. Germany obviously played a role, but so that goes on, and then these countries slowly get their quote-unquote independence. But even as they get their independence, which is what we're learning with Gabon and Guinea and Niger and all these others, is that although they're independent, the country that colonized them for years continues to own their leadership and have couped them, or sometimes assassinated them, like in the case of Lumumba and others, but have couped them to put in puppet governments. So they're still colonial. They're still giving away their resources. They're still being extracted in a completely unfair. Is that a term we should use? It's just kind of unfair when you steal all the shit. So these uprisings are very powerful, very important, and a big shift in the way these areas of the world have worked. Let's see here. The coup government in Mali ordered French troops out of its country by March 18th, 2022. France completed its withdrawal August 15th of 2022. On January 26th this year, France agreed to withdraw its forces from Burkina Faso after a request from the government that it cede power there. In Niger, a similar demand has been made by the junta that took power last month, but French President Macron is so far playing hardball, refusing to move his forces and supporting a potential military intervention by ECOWAS to restore Niger's restored leader. That's a typo. But as I covered that a couple of days ago about ECOWAS basically announcing the date that they say they may invade Niger. Anyway, this is a big development of people fighting back, standing up against the neo-colonial outfits, governments. But also, this doesn't mean that every military government that gets put in place is a positive one or one that serves the needs of the people. So, it can be both. It can be both a good thing, and you kind of got to be like, well, let's keep an eye on this group of military leaders and see what they end up doing, see how they end up running things, see whether they move towards a more legitimate democracy. But as Eugene Perrier said in his tweet about the story. After 55 years of rule by the Bongo family, it seems the people of Gabon are happy to see the Bongo model, high unemployment, persistent poverty, neo-colonial subordination, go. Happy to see it go. So, yeah. Big moments. And as I've said in my other coverage of these stories, this also shows how much the power of the U.S. empire is falling, is decreasing, because these countries are able to stand up against their Western, their Western, I don't know, exploiters, their Western abusers. A lot of this shows that these countries no longer believe the United States is as powerful as it once was. And that is a good thing for this world, to see the U.S. empire retract, to at least to some degree. And, you know, empires that are overextended, they always fall. Every example, every time. And when an empire takes over tons of land, tons of area, and claims to make the decision for billions and billions of people, I mean, it didn't used to be billions, but still, it can't sustain. It can't sustain. It of course is based on exploitation. It's based on abuse, and that's the type of thing your mainstream media can't tell you. Even if they may tell you about this coup, they can't tell you the truth about the U.S. empire. But so this is big news. Five coups kicking out U.S. and Western-backed puppet governments. Truly unbelievable, and getting little to no coverage in your mainstream media. You know, New York Times will do a little tiny article about how the military junta did bad things, and that's the extent of it. All right, I also want to get to Mitch McConnell. His program rebooted yet again while he was speaking to the press. This seems to be happening a lot with him, where this so-called leader, the system just starts buffering while he's speaking to media, and it does make you wonder, how often does this go on when he's not speaking to media? If this has already happened twice while he's standing up there in front of media, how much is it happening just like in his everyday life? But I'm going to get to another, in a moment, I'm going to get to another aspect of this that your mainstream media will, of course, never say. Let's see. So here he is yesterday.
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's right.
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026? All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator. Benny.
Okay.
Somebody else have a question? Please speak up.
What?
Running.
Please speak up. Yeah, that was the problem. He didn't hear it. He didn't hear it for 30 seconds. Whatever was echoing in his head, he didn't hear. Now, here's the thing. I wouldn't normally not make fun of old people having strokes and other type of difficulties. But when you are telling people that you are fit for office and you are standing in front of TV cameras and you clearly have no idea where you are or what you're doing. I mean, could you imagine what a debate would be? Oh, to complete that thought, then I'm fine with making fun of you. Could you imagine what a debate would be like if it were Mitch McConnell versus Joe Biden right now? Like what that debate, it would just be 2 hours of them staring off. Whoa, Joe Biden facing the wrong direction. Mitch McConnell lost in some sort of permanent buffering situation. But here's the other aspect of this that, or how about a debate between him and Dianne Feinstein? But here's another aspect of this that even the left-wing commentators I've seen talk about it don't seem to mention this. What our crazy right-wing fucking sociopathic government, and when I say right-wing sociopathic government, I mean both Democrats and Republicans, just about all of them, are insane, world-obliterating, killing 6 million people with just the global war on terror government, right-wing fucking nearly neo-fascist. We can debate some other time whether we're in neo-fascism or not. Do you want them to function? Do you want those people to function well? I want Mitch McConnell to do this as much as possible. I want his brain to not work as much as it can possibly go on. Anytime he's sitting at his desk, just staring into space, not doing anything, is the best thing for humanity. Right there, when he was frozen, that was 30 seconds. Humanity did better. And again, I'm not just saying about Republicans. I believe the same for Joe Biden. Problem is, Joe Biden, the real people making the decisions in the Biden administration are not Joe Biden. They're the fucking younger people around him, the Anthony Blinkens and shit. It would be nice, though, if Joe Biden were making decisions, because he'd be staring off into space, not making any decisions. Mitch McConnell making decisions for the Republican Party, staring off into space, not making decisions. That would be great for humanity. Can we have as many of these people that are just brain dead, staring off into space, don't know what's actually happening, and therefore can't make real decisions in office as possible? Because that would be a more sustainable, peaceful world. They wouldn't be able to decide on war, economic war. They wouldn't be able to decide on stealing money out of education or from poor people. They wouldn't be able to decide to take away Medicare or to arrest people for tiny drug charges. They wouldn't be able to make all these decisions to drop bombs or to create propaganda that says that there were, chemical attacks in Syria, so we've got to destroy Syria, or they wouldn't be able to perpetrate a proxy war in Ukraine if they were just staring off into space. I say more Alzheimer's patients in office, more patients suffering from whatever Mitch McConnell has, whatever these are, mini strokes. They absolutely fill the offices of our higher government with those folks. We need more time of them incapable of doing their job, because their job, as it's been for the past many decades, has been to destroy the goddamn world. So I just became a Mitch McConnell voter, just right there. About halfway through that freeze right there, I was like, I'm on his side. And yes, someone else guessed where I might end up with this, which this is yet again why the best candidate for president is Yard Rock 2024. Okay, yardrock2024.com. This guy would not perpetrate war crimes around the world. He is not funded by any of these corporate entities. He is not going to destroy lives and everything else and facilitate the military-industrial complex. Yard Rock 2024 is the best we got going. Okay, maybe second best to Cornel West, but it's tight. It's tight. I will say that it's a tight race between as best candidate for president between Cornel West and Yard Rock, where you can check out yardrock2024.com, where 50% of all the merch goes to erase medical debt for struggling Americans. We've already erased something like $70,000 of medical debt for struggling Americans. That part is absolutely true. And since I mentioned Cornel West, I might as well throw in here that just the other day, Bernie Sanders, who we all know and love, came out and said that everyone should vote for Joe Biden and Cornel West is a horrible human being. And that is just a wonderful thing for Bernie to do after all the support Cornel West has given him over the years. Thank you, Bernie, for jumping out front there and endorsing Joe Biden over a year before the actual election and telling everyone that Cornel West sucks. Thank you for doing that. Bernie Sanders, God, he has just got, you know what? He has aged well. Bernie has. He led a revolution in 2016, and now he is withered down to endorsing war criminals over a year before the election. Because you want to get out, you do want to get out front and let everybody know, hey, I'm with the war criminal now. I'm with that guy who's sexually assaulted people and been funded by credit card companies and big banks his entire career and put forward every pro-policing bill that has ever existed and it continues to perpetrate wars and proxy wars. I'm with that guy now, even though the election is a year out. Thank you, Bernie, for that one. Well done. Well done. Okay. Moving on. I'm glad I just talked all of you into voting for Mitch McConnell. Speaking of Joe Biden, speaking of the lovely, wonderful Joe Biden, by the way, please click subscribe and thumbs up and leave a comment. Even if you got nothing to say, it helps with the algorithm. And we're closing in on 60,000 followers on Rumble. So I'd love for you to click follow over at rumble.com/leecamp. And it's free to do. So why not? Why would you not? It's free to do. All right. So here's a New York Times article about how Biden is looking for new ways to energize black voters. And I would like to translate some of this article for those of you who want actual human speak out of this article. Actually what they mean. When Biden says, when it says Biden's looking for new ways to energize black voters, let me translate what that means. First of all, it's not Biden. Okay. Biden's sitting in a chair playing with his oatmeal. So the people around Biden are looking for new ways to get black voters to vote for him when he has done nothing for them in the multiple years he's been president. He promised he was going to do so much for black Americans. He's done essentially zero. And by energize, they mean trick black voters into voting for him again. That's what this article is. The article is the New York Times trying to convince you that Biden cares about black people and really faulting the black voters for not being energized enough. Why is it they're not energized enough? Oh, maybe it's because he's done fuck all for them. Maybe that's what it is. I can't see. Look, the photo they show here of this black person, she just doesn't look energized. She just, maybe she's not eating right, or maybe she didn't get a good sleepy time last night. She's just not energized enough. And it's clearly not Joe Biden's fault, so it must be black voters' fault for not having the energy, for not drinking a Red Bull before they head out there. And this article appears to be, these are tiny thumbnails, but appears to be written by two black people, New York Times writers, who are trying to tell you that Joe Biden does love black people. He just can't seem to get anything done for them. He's tried so hard. He's tried so hard, especially since he is responsible for doubling the prison population, locking up more black and brown people in this country than there were slaves during the time of slavery in America. That can be put on Joe Biden's plate. And so many other racist things can be put on Joe Biden's plate. And yet here we are, the New York Times, asking, why won't black people vote for him with more gusto, more fucking energy? Why aren't they fucking energized? Why aren't they just hopping up and down in line waiting to vote for Joe Biden? So they start off by talking about how Vice President Kamala Harris, you hear a lot about her, don't you? You hear about just how much she's been doing, just achieving so much. Harris has. They started by saying she was speaking to a crowd, and she said, "We are looking at a full-on attack on our hard-fought, hard-won freedoms. So much is at stake in the 2024 presidential election, including our very democracy. Oh, it's the most important election of our lifetimes." Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard anyone say it's the most important election of our lifetimes? I can't remember where it was. Oh, it just occurred to me. Every fucking year. They say that every goddamn year. They say most important election of our lifetime. Therefore, you have to vote for the shitty, super shitty Democrats. Or maybe the Republicans tell their fan base too. It's the most important ever. So you got to vote for the shitty, super shitty Republicans. It's the most important ever, folks. This is the most important ever. And by the way, when she mentions our hard-fought, hard-won freedoms, first of all, any freedoms we have were not won by the people she's talking about or her type of people. They were won by people on the street. They were won by activists on the front lines. That's who they were won by. They were won by pressuring the ruling elite into thinking they had no choice but to give people civil rights or to give women the right to vote or to give workers various various perks and things, the various benefits that you get by working at a company. These are all won by amazing activists. They're not won by these shitty politicians who ultimately do it because they feel they have no choice. And then all of that stuff is eroded. It's eroded over time. They start attacking those things. They start attacking whatever it is that you might have had, that you might have gotten. That's what your ruling elite do. And remember, she's talking on behalf of the party that has grown unlimited surveillance, that has been in power during a lot of the doubling of the prison population, which is not freedom. I don't know if you know that. When you're locked up in prison, that's really the opposite of free. She's representing the party and the ruling elite who have seen the gutting of whatever freedoms these were, who have stood by and allowed so many of them to happen. I mean, even the ones that were not done by the Democratic Party, like losing your right to have a freedom of choice over your own bodies, those rights could have been codified. They could have been put in a permanent nature into our federal law. Any of the times that the Democrats have had both Congress and the presidency, and they didn't. They fucking didn't, because they wanted to use that as a wedge issue, as something that they could keep telling you. It's the most important election we've ever seen. In 2020, the New York Times tells you, President Biden promised black voters he would deliver a sweeping racial equality agenda that included a landmark federal voting rights bill, student loan relief, criminal justice reform, and more. 3 years later, much of that agenda has not happened at all. And the New York Times, because the job of the New York Times is really to run interference for the Democrats and try to justify the horseshit that they do or don't do, really. The way the New York Times phrases it is, with much of the agenda thwarted by Congress or the courts. Yes, that's right. Joe Biden has just tried to be the best president ever, but he's just been stopped by the courts and the Congress. You know how much he could do if he just fucking wanted to? If he did the various things as Trump did, going around the courts, going around Congress, he could do all kinds of shit. I went through, I wrote an article whenever Biden became president. I don't know. All these years are a blur. I don't even know. What year is it? I'm a deep fake now. So it's like, I don't even know what's happening. But like 3 years ago, I put out an article of, it was like the 12 or 15 things that Joe Biden could have done on day one with executive actions, and done none of them. Most people don't even know that Joe Biden has that ability because Democrats don't want you to know. One example is to give everyone health care. He could do that with an executive action on day one. When he got into office, we were in the middle of a pandemic, and there's a law in the U.S. saying that an area of people, if they're facing an environmental health hazard, can be given free healthcare, can be given universal healthcare. It's within U.S. law. And there's only one place that I know of that has it. It's Libby, Montana. The entire town gets free healthcare because of the asbestos mines near them. But that's the only one that has it. I think that's the only one. Joe Biden could have done it for the whole nation. He could have said, we're in a pandemic, everyone gets healthcare. But of course, even outside of the pandemic, you could have done it for just about everywhere. There's 2,000 cities that have unclean water in the United States. There's elevated lead levels that are unsafe to drink in many cities. The air is sickening. The fucking forest fire smog here on the East Coast where we can't even go outside some days. You could come up with an environmental threat anywhere in the United States, give everyone healthcare. That's just one example of what Joe Biden could have done. Fucking not at all. But the New York Times wants you to believe that all these things he's failed on, it's just Congress. Oh, just Congress won't let him. In an opinion essay published on Sunday in the Washington Post, marking the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, Mr. Biden, and that if it said he wrote an opinion essay for the Washington Post, that means Anthony Blinken wrote an opinion piece on for the Washington Post and then signed Joe Biden's name. Which is kind of funny because Joe Biden dropped out of his first presidential run in the 1980s because he was caught for plagiarism. So it's kind of funny that now other people are writing his essays for the Washington Post. Oh, isn't it nice how the world comes full circle? That's so great how that works. So he wrote this on the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. Of course, there's massive irony there. Just the fact that the type of politician that Joe Biden is did not celebrate or support civil rights. Biden was against against desegregation. He was for segregation until he wasn't. He was good friends, best buddies with Strom Thurmond, a straight up racist. He, of course, supported all these cop bills and prison bills that are completely racist. Joe Biden has been racist throughout his entire career in all of his policies. And all of a sudden, here he is saying, on the 60th anniversary of MLK's March on Washington, I just want to say that I love black voters. Also, let's remember that the federal government that Biden represents, and Biden has been a big part of for the 900 years of his career, they're the ones that murdered Martin Luther King Jr. And I have covered this many times. Many people are afraid to cover it, but MLK Jr. was actually, I probably shouldn't say it because of the algorithm and reading the transcripts, but he was actually killed by FBI and Memphis police. See, that's the problem is if I talk for an hour, then I might only have one or two sentences that mean that YouTube and everything else are not going to show my video to anyone. But the problem is I always have one or two sentences. You let me talk for an hour, there's going to be at least one or two sentences where the algorithm's like, whoa, ha, oh, too spicy for my blood. Can't show that to the peoples. That sentence is always gonna get in there somewhere. If you want to hear the truth about MLK, listen to my podcast, Government Secrets, where we go into that and we go into the truth about JFK. Anyway, that's all on Government Secrets podcast. You can go back into old episodes and listen to those. But all right, so he wrote this op-ed about how he just loves black voters. Joe Biden, just like, in fact, he said in the op-ed that he really wants to smell all of their hair. He just wants to walk up behind them when they're not looking and smell their hair. That's how much he loves black voters. And it's just so nice of him to do that for people, to just smell all of their hair. The president wrote that his administration was, quote, advancing equity in everything we do, making unprecedented investments in all of America, including for black Americans. The largest prison state in the world with a racist system wants you to know that they're doing everything they can for equity. to make sure there's equality. They spend day and night just trying to make sure that happens in the largest prison state in the world, with one of the largest police forces in the world, per capita, the largest police force in the world, that Joe Biden has never taken a dollar from, never, not just defunded. He's never said, "Hey guys, could you shift like 5% of your budget over to the kids who aren't able to eat lunch?" Never said that in his entire career. But yeah, he wants you to know he's trying to get equality. He's really on the equality bandwagon, is what he is, working so hard. But you know, it is just New York Times getting nailing on the head there. He's thwarted by Congress because we all can see how powerful and unstoppable Mitch McConnell is. Every time you think you can stand up to Mitch McConnell, you just saw that video of him. Oh, he is a strapping young man in his prime. And no one can stop Mitch McConnell. If only Biden had a way around Mitch McConnell, but he's so fucking fast. He's so quick and crafty. Oh, I mean, you saw the video. Mitch McConnell's unstoppable. So they can't, they've tried to get through Congress. They can't do it. Mitch McConnell's just too powerful. All right. Speaking of that, well, actually, I feel like maybe I should save that story and jump to the new documents and what they've revealed about MK Ultra. For those of you who don't know, MK Ultra was this massive government effort in the 50s, 60s, and I think it went into the 70s to brainwash people, to torture people, there were many aspects of it. There was also infiltration of activist groups. There were so many aspects of it, that and COINTELPRO and all of these things. MK Ultra was mainly the brain manipulation, doing testing on people they didn't know about without their knowledge. But new documents actually from the government that have been declassified show even more about MK Ultra. And I'm going to get to that story right now at rumble.com/leecamp. It is free to watch over there. Rumble.com/leecamp. Join me over there. Oh, and also there's not many tickets left, but my first ever live stand-up comedy Zoom show where I'll be seated. So it'll be seated stand-up comedy. Because fun fact, stand-up comedy got that name because it had to do with a stand-up boxer. They would call someone a stand-up boxer if they were a boxer that would just walk straight up to the guy and get pounded in the face, and they could take the beating. Like, that was it. They weren't a Muhammad Ali that was jumping all around. You were a stand-up boxer if you just walk straight up and just pound for pound, go straight at it. So they started calling it stand-up comedy because this was a guy alone on stage just fighting the audience, getting pounded in the face. So that's where the name stand-up comedy. So I'm doing stand-up comedy, but I'm going to be seated. So, but it's still stand-up comedy. Anyway, full hour, first one in 5 years, and that tickets are $5. And the link, the easiest way to get it is at the top of my Twitter page, twitter.com/leecamp. That's the easiest way to get the link. And that's this Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern. I hope you will join me. But all right, the MK Ultra story, rumble.com/leecamp. That's rumble.com/leecamp. And let me just shift this.